This is the iPhone 13, a phone that was launched over a year ago but still has a chance to be the most popular phone for 2023, and here are the reasons why. Now you might be saying to yourself, Jason, hold on a second, don't you mean the iPhone 14, the newest iPhone that was just released a few months ago? No, very clearly no. Now, I can totally understand why you'd think a mistake was made because, in theory, the newest version of something should be better than all of its previous iterations, right? In most cases, the answer is yes, and look, I'm not going to suggest that the iPhone 14 is inherently a bad phone. It's just a really stupid choice to go with, all things considered. And as someone who has used the iPhone 13 since it debuted, I am telling you right now, 1 year later, this is going to be one of the most popular phones for 2023. And let's start by addressing the main overarching reason why the iPhone 13 1 year later is a better choice to go with than the newer iPhone 14, and that's the price difference. The newest flagship iPhone comes in with a starting price of $799, while you could purchase a new iPhone 13 right now for $100 cheaper. Now I know you might be saying to yourself, $100 not that big of a deal, and I'd agree with you, but you need to take that price difference and pair it with this very important fact. The new iPhone 14 is virtually identical to the older 13. And I'm not saying that lightly because iPhones aren't notorious for minor updates year to year, but to put it bluntly, the iPhone 14 will likely go down as the least new iPhone of all time. So even though the price difference isn't that significant, keep this factor in mind as it serves as a common denominator for all the reasons why the iPhone 13 is just a better phone to go with. But let's get into how the iPhone 13 has held up from a physical design standpoint 1 year later, and I'm happy to say it's done very well. This isn't the Pro version of the iPhone, so it's not going to be the creme de la creme when it comes to the build and aesthetics, but don't get it twisted, the iPhone 13 is still a premium flagship phone even in today's standards. I think the main component around the form factor that I've really enjoyed with this phone 1 year later has been the size. It's relatively compact when compared to the competition, but in turn way more comfortable to hold and operate, especially with one hand, all while still getting a more than adequate 6.1-inch immersive display. The comfort is only enhanced with this flat design Apple debuted with the iPhone 12. With these dimensions, the flat frame fits comfortably in the palm without any pinching or digging, and because it's not as heavy as the Pro model, it's way less fatiguing to hold for extended periods of time. 1 year later, I also prefer the brush finish of the aluminum frame over the polished one on the Pros. It's a bit cleaner in my opinion, and I like that it's color matched. And even though it is a fingerprint magnet, my iPhone 13 from a durability standpoint has held up very well. Yes, I do use a screen protector and a case, but there are no visible scratches on this whatsoever. It's in pristine condition despite a good amount of use. The display on the iPhone 13 has also held up really well over time. It's a Super Retina XDR OLED panel that is tack sharp, gives off vibrant colors, and is completely flat, which I like. Yes, it only clocks in at 60 Hz, but it's really not that big of a deal considering how smooth iOS is. And why is this a better phone to go with than the iPhone 14? Again, from a design perspective, the 13 and the 14 are virtually identical. In fact, the only difference between the two would be some of the unique color choices. That's really about it. The dimensions, build material, display, notch size, everything is one-to-one the same with the iPhone 13. So if you're hoping for some positive changes to come with the newest model, you're unfortunately not going to find any. But let's talk about performance and how the iPhone 13 has held up 1 year later, and again, I'm happy to say it's done very well. Being powered by the ultra-powerful A15 Bionic, the iPhone 13 is just as smooth and fast as it was when it was first taken out the box, and I anticipate it'll stay that way for years to come. Apps load quickly, spec-intensive gaming is still a cakewalk for this phone, and you still get access to some of the most advanced camera features that really rely on this powerful processor. But 1 year later, the area of performance that has really stood out for me with the iPhone 13 has got to be its battery life. I've been able to average around 7 hours of screen on time since getting my hands on this phone, and battery life really hasn't deteriorated over time. This to me is the main differentiator when it comes to comparing this to the iPhone 12. That phone is also very similar to the 13, but the battery performance isn't nearly as good as I'm able to get here. Now you might be thinking, performance has to be the area in which the newer iPhone 14 does better, right? Again, the answer is no. But you're not wrong in thinking that because historically, Apple has up to this point equipped all of their flagship iPhones with their newest mobile processors, but they didn't this time. The new A16 Bionic is exclusive to the new iPhone 14 Pro models, and the regular iPhone 14 maintains last year's A15 Bionic. Now, it's really not a big deal when it comes to day-to-day use, as again, the performance coming out of the A15 is still fantastic, but it's all the more reason why paying extra for the iPhone 14 really doesn't make any sense. And real quick, I hope this video is helpful. Pressing the like button would be super helpful for me, and a sub to the channel would be even better. But let's get into probably the most important area of performance that, again, the iPhone 13 has done very well in, and that's its camera quality. Now, it may not seem like much from a hardware perspective, as is you get your standard dual camera setup on the back with a single front-facing selfie camera on the front, but 1 year later, I can confidently say that the image quality coming out of the iPhone 13 is probably one of the best I've experienced. And the reason for that has less to do with anything extraordinary and more with the camera system being easy to use and very consistent when it comes to quality. No matter what environment you're in, this phone is going to be able to take a photo that will come out amazing. In my opinion, it's a noticeable improvement from the iPhone 12, and in certain ways, it's better than even the new cameras on the iPhone 14 Pro. The minimum focus distance on the new 48 megapixel sensor on the 14 Pro makes it kind of annoying when using the camera app, as it switches you over to the ultra wide camera even when you get moderately close to the subject. I never had that issue with the iPhone 13, and I find that the image processing is again a little bit more consistent with this phone. When it comes to video quality, it's still class leading, and the 13 ushered in new features like cinematic mode and the ability to shoot Apple ProRes, and altogether the camera suite on this device is still one of the best in the market today. And sorry to sound like a broken record, but in case you're curious, no, the iPhone 14 does not offer anything of note that would make their cameras more compelling over the 13s. In fact, the hardware is virtually identical, and the same could be said about the still image and video quality overall. So 1 year later, not only is the iPhone 13 still a very capable phone in virtually every category, the phone that succeeded it, if we're being blunt, is essentially the same thing, just repackaged and more expensive. And that's why I think the 13 is going to be a really popular choice going into 2023. It may not be that much cheaper from a pricing standpoint, but there's really no good reason to pay extra for the newest non-Pro offering. Now that might be the case with the iPhone 14, but I don't think it's the same with the iPhone 14 or the 14 Pro Max. Check out these videos here if you want to learn more about them. They're on a totally different level.